This is my weekly recap, and I haven't been wading into the weeds too much lately on the political front because you know what, it's the same stuff every single day, but there's a lot that is going on in Canada that I think everybody should be made aware of, and it's kind of funny how so much is being left out of mainstream media. Again, once again, I have to, focus on the fact that we aren't hearing 100% of the truth. Now, speaking of somebody that doesn't really know how to say the truth, you know what? We can take a look at our Prime Minister. That's right, Mark Carney. So Mr. Carney here has done some, I would say, suspicious things over the last couple of weeks. And of course, this is to the detriment of Canadians. Now, for those of you that have tuned in and listened to me, over the last little while, one of the things I do focus on very much is family values, Canadian values, tax-paying, hardworking, Canadians that are trying to make things better. And again, so they airdrop Mr. Carney in, and he's still, believe it or not, he's still trying to question some ballots to see if it can be overturned so he gets a majority. I'm not going to be surprised if they're going to lie and cheat their way to a majority. It's one of those things that we should watch. Hopefully, we've got a few people that are going to be able to block this from happening, but we'll wait and see. But here's the thing. So his new cabinet was announced this past week. And you know what? Take a look. If that's not a really bad, picture of the school class, but it's the same people. The majority of the people that are present. Now, of course, he did mention, I'm going to bring in some new people. But the experience level of the majority of these people is absolutely zero. Now that Chrystia Freeland has been moved over to, what is she, the transportation minister, from being, the deputy prime minister, from being the finance minister. Oh, and if everybody remembers what happened with her being in that realm, our budget went through the roof. Put Canada more in debt. It seems like Groundhog Day all over again. We're getting the same thing, except it's actually getting worse. At least in the movie Groundhog Day, there was the same thing every single day. Everything else, the guy, Bill Murray could react. We can't react as Canadians, but it seems to be getting worse. I don't see where anything is benefiting Canadians. And I do want to remind people that some of you that have voted this in, well, a big part of that, was the fact that, he was going to take on Donald Trump. Now, before I go down that path, is that we have to take a look at our housing minister, the new housing minister, Gregor Robertson. Okay, now seriously, are you kidding me? Now, part of this guy's history is that he's ex-NDP. So it's pretty fitting that the Liberals would pick up on this guy because he's the ex-mayor of Vancouver. And, he's going to turn around and put on his hat saying, oh, how amazing he has been for BC and the city of Vancouver and everything else. I beg to differ. But taking credit with the increase in housing prices by 149%, I don't know. You really want to take credit for that? I mean, quite frankly, I don't think you did anything about it. It's just pure immigration. And where are they coming from? You got to Asia. So we talk a lot about Chinese, owning basically Vancouver. And it's the truth. So I'm just kind of wondering how much, there was behind the scenes being done. But, when you talk about property taxes, yes, values went up. So what happens? Property taxes in lockstep. But what about the people that weren't selling? What about the, the boomers or the mom and pop that, happened to buy a little house and that's all they could afford? Yes, values went up, but now you're going to force them to sell. Hey, Gregor, are you sure about this? I'm not sure you really understand what housing is because quite frankly, your take on housing, you have no experience in housing. You've never built a damn thing. You really don't know what you're talking about. But hey, let's follow the party narrative. Let's see what he had to say when they asked him about housing.
Affordable housing, delivering that. To go down. No, I think that we need to deliver more supply, make sure the market is stable. It's a huge part of our economy. But we need to be delivering more affordable housing. The government of Canada has not been building affordable housing since the 90s, and we've created a huge shortage across Canada. That's where the big need is right now, and I'm very encouraged that the Prime Minister and our commitment right now in government is to double construction and focus on the affordable side.
Okay, so I need to talk about this narrative. So this new housing minister talks about affordable housing, not affordable ownership. Mr. Carney did the same thing. Part of his platform, nothing but affordable housing, but not home ownership. See, they're missing something here, or perhaps it's the narrative that they want to shove down our throats, that they're going to focus on affordable housing. Well, for those of you that listen to me, you know that I am really focused about being able to build for ownership. Okay. I don't believe the government should be landlord. They do a horrible job of it. Okay. You can see every city when you talk about community housing, they're absolute dumps. There's not a government employee that should be running a landlord or like a landlord. And quite frankly, if we're talking about the federal government, housing hasn't been on their purview for years, and now all of a sudden they're going to sit there and build affordable housing. I wonder how much Brookfield is going to make off the new affordable housing. Gee, Mr. Carney, can you answer that question? Probably not. Same reason why we haven't seen him disclose all of his assets and net worth. These are the kind of things that we got to look behind the scenes. But back to this guy for a second. So, he's laying claim that he brought, Vancouver City to its epic center of, we are green, we're this, we're that. And he's running around, the globe telling everybody how to make these initiatives happen. Well, last time I checked, these are all private companies that are doing a whole whack of funding from the government that is paying them. And really, are we going to be looking at another ArriveCan app situation? Sounds like it. You know what? Let's pad the people in the background to make sure that our friends and family are making a boatload of money. So I don't trust this guy. He doesn't know anything about construction, doesn't know anything about housing. This whole beaking narrative of, we're going to make affordable housing. Guess what? You're not making ownership affordable. Now, his comment, of course, was that he said we don't want housing values to go down. I understand that. He knows that there's a missing middle there, that if housing values go down, what will happen is that we'll see a lot of elderly Canadians lose potentially their greatest asset. Okay, so if that's the case, they're going to lose out on tax dollars. So we're going to keep our eye on this because you never know what they're going to instigate next. So yeah, hey, let's not turn around and drop the values because we're going to hit you with personal tax on your primary residence. I know it's sitting there in the ether. We just have to wait and see what this guy comes up with. Again, not a fan. Now, one of the things that Carney has done and should not be allowed to, but it's so funny how, they think he's an economic genius. Okay, genius, question for you. Why aren't we having a budget? Oh no, we can't do that because I have to spend as much money as humanly possible over in the next several months. So what did he do? Aren't planning to table a budget this year, finance minister says. Well, here's the funny thing is that they're giving away money where they shouldn't be. And in retrospect, they turned around and made this entire election about protecting Canadians from the big bad Donald Trump. Well, you know what? Here's what happened. When we talk about the tariffs, okay, and how Canada was going to double down, everybody wanted to fight tariff with tariff. Do you know before the actual election, Carney actually turned around and put forth a motion that he was going to drop any kind of tariffs. So United States Surtax Remission Order 2025 signed and comes into force, granting wide remission waiver of above surtaxes. This is actually what Carney turned around and was going to do, never brought it to the public's awareness. So people voted this guy in, like, we're going to go tax Americans, and he'd already made a decision that they were going to review it and remove it. There's very little right now tariffs on anything coming in from the United States. Apparently orange juice is going to be on the top shelf there, probably not a lot, and alcohol. I don't know why they're picking on alcohol. It's kind of silly, you know what? But they are doing what they're doing. In the end, though, we are being led astray saying we're going to fight tariff for tariff. Well, you know what? If everybody had just worn their big boy pants, sat back, and actually negotiated correctly, you know what? We wouldn't be in the stage that we're in right now, where Canada is on a downslide with a leader that is not going to be able to pull up the ship. You know what? This is one of the things that we should be concerned about in the near future. Other than that, you know what? So what are we going to know? 6 months from now, are we going to turn around and look at it? Donald Trump is running around the world making deals. Mark Carney went and visited him. It was interesting to see the overall narrative. Mr. Carney sitting there, face turning up and everything else. But the fact is that we still need to work with our southern trading partner, our number one neighbor. And let's not kid ourselves. You know what? We are tied economically to the United States. If they benefit in the long run, so can Canada. I think we need to focus on a lot right now. But again, I'm not going to sit there and, every single day talk about this stuff. It's better to do a quick recap. Love to hear your thoughts on what you think is going on right now for Canada, your take on Carney and, well, his usual stuff that he's shoveling. And of course, one of the most important things I always say, watch out for your friends, your family, your kids, the next gen. And you know what? Be proud to be Canadians, okay? Because we are. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. I'm Todd Slater.